Hi, thanks for joining me as I take a detour to do some troubleshooting and practice before I get too far along on my layout. One challenge when building a layout using foam and modules is connecting the track between the two modules. I found a solution, I believe, while watching Roy Smith on his N-Scale Union Pacific Evanston Subdivision channel. On one of his recent videos, he showed how he was using a Kato Expansion Track to help him build a lift-out section. So I decided to experiment and see if I can make this work by embedding it in the foam and connecting it to the flex track that I was already using. So here I am carving out the foam initially with a razor blade and then a utility knife to embed the pieces down in the foam so the tracks would align up. Took a little time to get this project done, the carving out the little notch so the tracks line up. See me here experimenting. I also made sure that I made the notches wide enough so the expansion joint had to be open a little bit. After painting the foam, I used standard rail joiners to connect the two pieces of flex track, which wasn't entirely easy thing to do, but I was able to make it work. And here I experiment to make sure I know exactly where to seat the piece in to glue it down. And here I am finishing the gluing down part, but I'll confess that I made a mistake, and I should not have been gluing down the actual expandable track piece. I should have just been gluing down the flexible track, but using the expansion track as a placeholder or a template to make sure I glued down the expansion track properly. After running a car over the track to make sure that it ran over smoothly, I take the rail joiners and slide them to one side so I can pull apart the two pieces of foam, the modules that I'm experimenting with, so I can ensure the concept will work. Not wanting to do too much work for the first time on the actual modules, I decided to continue some of this experimenting. First, I was going to ballast and realized that the gray ballast I had was lighter than the Kato plastic ballast. So I mixed up some Indian ink, poured in my gray ballast, and hoped to dye it an appropriate color. Actually came out fairly good. I probably could have used more of the Indian ink to make it darker. You can see here I poured it into a coffee filter to strain it, and then spread it out on a piece of paper for it to dry. I used one of my overhead lights, which get pretty hot, to help speed the drying process along. You can see the two containers with the slightly different colored gray. I'm gluing down the ballast with diluted Mod Podge and using a spoon to apply it, and ultimately ended up using my fingers and a brush to get the appropriate profile, or at least try to get the appropriate profile. It was only the second time I tried doing this and never actually tried gluing it down before. So fair amount of experimenting and just plain old playing around trying to get it as best as I could. In order to secure the ballast, I drizzled on some more of the diluted glue, which I probably was too aggressive because it reshaped how I had the stones piled to make the appropriate profile. Continuing my work, I used a brush to spread on more of the diluted glue and proceeded to use a strainer to shake on some scenic ground foam. I was careful to only put the glue where I wanted to and not put it on the ballast that already existed. After that, I tipped it over to shake off any excess, and then used a brush to get off the parts, the ground cover that was clinging to the surface. I then experimented by adding some different ground cover on top of it, adding glue, dripping glue off the brush in patterns that I thought may look decent. And then I also added some clump foliage, try to make little bushes or larger growths of plant life. Not exactly thrilled with the way this turned out. Color contrast is probably not very great, but I'm just experimenting and playing and trying to see what looks good and what doesn't look good. So hopefully when I try to add ground cover to my actual module, I'll have a better idea what I'm doing. To finish it off, I added a few pine trees that I bought a couple weeks ago at the store and took a shot with my trains. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all the support and kind words that you've been leaving me in the comments, and I hope to have another video out next week. Thank you.